I'm Chris Gore. This is the Film Threat Podcast. Welcome to our continuing reports here from the Sundance Film Festival. And I've just seen Nick Broomfield's new film, Marianne Leonard, Words of Love, which, if you're not familiar with the work of Nick Broomfield, you need to do your homework. Nick is a personal documentary filmmaker that's unlike anyone. There's really no comparison that I can think of. You have a wry wit and a sense of humor that I think permeates all of your work, which is why you've always stood out to me, and I've always followed your adventures. And this one in particular, when I learned what the subject matter was, which is about Leonard Cohen and I guess the great love of his life. And you're connected to this story. It's fascinating. And the ending of the film, I mean, it's part music doc, part personal doc, part a look at that era and definitely changing mores, but also you're a part of it, and the way that it becomes so personal by the end is just touching. I think the audience that was there, I mean, it was electric for your Q&A.
Yeah, it was good to see it with an audience. First time.
So how is that? Especially because you're a part of it, and it was also seeing these photos of you when you're in your 20s was it was great.
Yeah, painful. Yeah.
No, you're still a handsome man.
Well,
Look
thank
at you.
you very much.
But tell me the genesis of this project. You're connected to it, and just access to this incredible archive of footage. It's just remarkable.
Well, I guess there were two individuals that had a big impact on my life, and I suppose after they died, I just thought, wow, this was a cornerstone of my life, and I'd like to sort of revisit it, or at least mark it in some way. And then I started working on it. And I always remembered Marianne telling me about D.A. Pennebaker going to Idra the year before I was there, a long time before I had even heard of Pennebaker, saying that he had shot all this footage of her. They'd gone out on a boat and stuff. And so that was almost the beginning of some of the archive hunt, which is I called up Pennebaker, who really, I think, couldn't remember having shot footage. They eventually found it, and the footage had never been viewed. And it's just the most beautiful, because Pennebaker is such an incredible poet with a camera, and he clearly fell in love with Marianne as well as I did. And he just shot that beautiful, beautiful footage of her against the Greek sun, and is just amazing. It was almost like I did feel I was sort of meant to do the film, because it wasn't as difficult as things just sort of fell into place in a way. Like, finding that footage was incredible, and other things just came together. So yeah, it was a very good experience.
And for those that may not be aware, Leonard Cohen is a famous musician who, well, perhaps most famous for the Hallelujah song that so many, that's been covered by 300 different groups of it's an anthem. It's a beautiful song that has come up so much in culture. But this personal story, this is a side of Leonard Cohen that people that are fans of his music would probably never have known, especially to the level of detail that you went into it. I mean, clearly musicians, artists are inspired by a muse. This is one of the threads throughout the film. And it was amazing to see Marianne get credit for being his muse, in a sense. Yeah.
I mean, I think she was one of those rare people whose talent was to find the strength of somebody in their artistry and to nurture that and to support that. When she first met Leonard, he was really a struggling poet and a writer. And she, in that time, sort of helped him move into using his poetry in his music, and saw the transformation of him from a writer to a singer, or a writer-singer. And she did that for a number of other people, Julie Felix and other musicians, and she got me to make my first film. So she had a profound effect on so many people. And of course, like muses tend to be, was uncredited for it. It's not a kind of occupation that we recognize, but is remarkable, and a remarkable talent that very few people have.
How is it, just knowing your work, and for people that may not be familiar with your previous films, the movie is not about you, but you're a touchstone. Mm-hmm. And in some of the films you do tend to, you have this incredible ability to just disarm anyone, even if they're incredibly upset with you. Now, that nothing like this occurs in this movie, no. But I've seen it in the past. Is this your gift? Is this ability to be disarming and be able to get people to participate with you on this journey? In the Q&A, you thank so many of the others. I've always believed filmmaking is a team sport, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you do need a quarterback or a team captain, but it is a team sport. Mm-hmm. You have this gift. You're not completely unaware of this.
Well, I think I think one of the great things about being a documentary filmmaker is you are in a position of, a very privileged position of getting to know a lot of people that you wouldn't normally do, and to empathize with. I think a lot of making a good documentary is that you empathize with people who might be very different from yourself, but you're telling their story as much as anything else, and to find a way that their characters, their goodness, their humor comes out. And so you try and find that key. And part of that key is obviously that they're amused by you, or that there's some connection between you and them. It's you can't, you have to give something of yourself to get them to feel that they can be bothered to give you themselves. So that's part of the making of a documentary, and obviously was in some situations easier than others, but it's what I enjoy too about doing those films, and having often very strong relationships and friendships with people that are very disparate and different from yourself.
Well, do you go through a process thinking through when you're making the film about how much to include yourself, or what? I believe that, at least from, I think it's the most personal thing that you've done. It's a side of you I think a lot of people will be surprised to learn, and it was and just the fact that she's also the person who inspired you to be a documentary filmmaker, to be sitting here at Sundance with your film. Do you ever think about that, or it's just because it feels very organic?
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably took making a film about the person who firstly I was in love with, and also persuaded me to make, obviously had that much of an influence on me. So you have to delve quite deep to tell that story properly. And from when I was 20, so you've been through, everyone's been through a lot in 40 years. And yes, I think each film does need to be different. You don't want to be like a one-trick pony who's repeating the same stuff. And I've gone through, originally I started doing cinema verite kind of films where I wasn't in them at all, and there weren't really any interviews. Then those are really hard films to make, by the way, because you have one go at everything, and you always are missing things, and then the editing rooms, it's a tricky. I mean, I love those films, but they're hard. And then I started just putting myself more in making films more about the process of making the films and defining people through that process, which involved me being in them, which I enjoyed a lot because it was very amusing to me to do that. And at first the commissioning editors hated it, but then at the point where they loved it and wanted more of me in the films, I became less interested. And then it sort of, you don't want to get stuck in a particular style. And the last film I did before this one, the one on Whitney Houston, I wasn't in it at all. My voice wasn't in it, so that was just a different extreme. This was obviously more personal. And the next, I'm doing something about my father, so that would be that would be an interesting challenge too.
Well, as far as music documentaries go, I can't even think of any music doc that comes close to this in terms of observing Leonard Cohen's evolution as an artist from being I put in quotes, failed writer, a failed poet, right, to evolving into a reluctant musician who then became, in a sense, maybe a victim of his own success. The success, it's a double-edged sword, I think, for many. Also dealing with his struggles with depression. I can't recall a more intimate music documentary. Most music documentaries focus on highlights, albums, the music, and certainly that is a part of this. But to get this personal was incredible. And I don't want to obviously delve into any territory that might ruin, say, the end of the film or some of the twists. But what was your approach in terms of, choosing how to portray that side as well as balancing the love story? Because the music story it's like getting almost 3 documentaries in one. A personal one that involves yourself, Marianne, and then Leonard's career.
Well, I think first and foremost, I saw it as a love story between these two people. Maybe that was also because I always connected them so much, and I knew, I was probably more connected to Marianne really than Leonard, and I knew that her love, I think, in a way, was constant right through his career, through his ups and downs and whatever. I mean, I went to her apartment, teeny little apartment in Oslo, and there was a whole bookshelf of Leonard's books and works there, and then there was a little Buddhist shrine on the balcony, which was very Leonard inspired, and you could just see, and this was at the end of her life, you could just see what a massive impact. Well, that she retained her love completely for him, So I was very, moved by that too. They'd obviously gone their separate ways, but so for me it was really a film about enduring love. I wouldn't say it was just her love. I think there was Leonard's love for her too, which you can see in the note and so on. But it's something that I think that I had a lot of respect for. So I guess his career is sort of part of that, really, and maybe that's why there was a lot. There's a lot of. I mean, I did feel in the screening today. There is a lot of things going on in the film, obviously, and it's obviously not a music film, really.
Yeah. I mean, that's certainly a major component. But I feel that it's almost in some sense a think piece about love itself, starting with the 60s, free love, and things being defined differently. I think we're going through a sort of different type of sexual revolution today where there are all sorts of definitions of how people can see themselves, right? How they identify. So I really feel that the way you explored it, I think really, really ties into what's happening now. and to hear some of the modern day interviews of some of the people as well. I feel that just the thoughtfulness about thinking about this topic, I think it's going to resonate with more people.
Yeah,
certainly.
I mean, one of the things I did feel from the screening today was from comments of people in the Q&A and when they came up to me afterwards, was that they had internalized it into their own lives and their own loves and their own regrets, probably. And that it was very personal. It had found a very personal place in their hearts, which I think was fantastic. You know, it's because often not so many films that I've made, I think people have made so much, drawn it into their own lives and their own experiences so much, and so I think it's amazing that it's had that having that effect.
Well, it was interesting because at the Q&A, people you could tell didn't want it to end. You were mobbed somewhat at the end, and even Bobby Schwartz, who's shooting the camera right now, he's shooting us. We were talking on the shuttle on the way over here to Main Street, just discussing how the film affected us in the sense that it's, you know, we may want to reach out to our certain people in our lives that maybe we have an undelivered message, something that's been brewing or incomplete, and that I think that it's just so affecting. You know, like I said, without giving anything away, that's how it affected us. And I know
that's a wonderful thing if it does that. I mean, it's because I think that's such a positive thing, isn't it? It's certainly in the making of the film, both Mark and I found that, I don't know if we learned that directly from Marianne and Leonard, but certainly I think we both felt we'd learned so much in the making of the film that we made us reconsider our own lives and our own behavior. So, when you say that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of it.
Yeah. No, I mean, you could tell in the audience how they were feeling by the end. It really is. I don't think I've ever seen a love story portrayed this way, and I'm not sure that even while romantic comedies are a popular and enduring genre, I've just never seen anything like this. It makes me want to actually even revisit his poetry and his book, Beautiful Losers, which, oddly enough, at the time it was released, got these scathing reviews, but it seems that now that work would be something worth exploring.
And his last book of poetry is pretty incredible.
Cool. What's next for the film? Can you tell us? It's now premiered at Sundance, and
I don't really know what, because this is like the first screening, and no one else has seen it. I mean, and when I say no one else has seen it, I mean no one. None of the sales companies have even seen it. I mean, we didn't show it to a single distributor.
Well, so, I'm sure they'll see it here.
They'll see it here, exactly. So, you know, I mean, obviously we want to get it out there, but I've got no idea where that will be or how that will happen. So this is a sort of exciting moment for us.
Well, certainly there'll be a commercial release. I mean,
yes, I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the interest in Leonard Cohen's work alone is enough, but it's also a remarkable surprise. And it's just so great to reconnect with you. I just want to say that the film to me, it's not just a movie. I feel like you gave the world a gift by telling this story, and I just cannot wait for people to see it because it will spur so much discussion. I hope.
I think it creates a lot of feedback, and people delve into themselves with the feedback. And I was really moved at when people came up to me. Some of the things that people said were very personal. And I'm used to obviously doing being in that kind of setting and situation, but I can't remember, people sharing such intimate details before. So that it obviously moved people in a way that, which is, very gratifying in a way.
Well, I think from the opening scene is very revealing about yourself. I think that you're giving people permission to, examine themselves. And so, again, I can't thank you enough. The movie's fantastic and remarkable, and I can't wait to see it again. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Lovely to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you too.
I do remember now. And did I? Yeah, we met up a couple of times. Didn't we?
You were so kind. We would go to Bordner's, which was downstairs.
Yeah.
If you remember Bordner's on Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
These were not great offices.
No,
they were cheap.
It was a shit heap, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was not a great place.
It was a funny old building.
It was a funny old building. Yeah, Cherokee building. I remember just. I mean, not that Hollywood's much cleaned up now, but
no, that was bad then.
It was bad. Yeah, you had a small. I had a small office. We were just. But you were always hanging around. You were always really kind. It was fun. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, it was an interesting time.
Thanks again.